Be read a second time. I call the member for Macquarie.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I rise to speak on the budget appropriation bills 2014-15 and related bills. The federal budget handed down in May recognises that our nation is indeed at a crossroads. It recognises that there are clear, hard choices to be made if we want to get Australia back on track. It attests that after 6 years of waste, of excessive spending and poor choices made by the former government, our nation has been drowning in a spiral of debt and deficit that is not sustainable. The bills before the Parliament today lay out a clear plan to build a strong, prosperous economy and a safe and secure Australia. Madam Deputy Speaker, those are not just phrases or words. They are a vision for what those of us on this side of the House see for our future. The Coalition Government is committed to an Australia that is strong, that is prosperous, that is growing, that is providing opportunities for all Australians, no matter what age, race, gender or background. And although some tough decisions have been made, these decisions are what will best place our nation to meet the challenges ahead. Deputy Speaker, like many members of the House, I remember well the fiscal position we had established during the last days of the Howard government. This did not happen by chance or accident. When we left office in 2007, there was $20 billion in surplus and there was money in the bank. Money in the bank to invest in this nation. In an unprecedented 6 years, Labor turned nearly $50 billion in the bank into projected net debt well over $200 billion. This is the fastest deterioration in debt in dollar terms and as a share of GDP in modern Australian history. What is disappointing is that I have not heard or seen any evidence of the other side of this House taking responsibility for what they took us to. One figure that absolutely astounds me is the fact that because of Labor's mismanagement, we are now paying more than $1 billion per month in net interest payments. If left unchecked, that would be $2.8 billion a month in 10 years' time. That is staggering and shameful. $1 billion could do so much for the electorate of Macquarie. The number of roads, an additional crossing, for example, over the river, which would ease certainly the traffic congestion and the challenges faced by many in my community, is just one of the many projects that we could invest in if we did not have to pay that debt. And although there have been tough decisions made in this budget, many of the residents in Macquarie that I've talked to understand that just like a household managing a budget, we cannot afford to keep borrowing to pay $1 billion a month interest. It is like a household paying a mortgage on a credit card. We have a difficult task at hand, but the Coalition Government is up to the challenge. I would like to focus on some of the reforms within this budget that take us forward as a nation. I will also talk to some of the specific funding and investment, particularly in infrastructure for the electorate of Macquarie and indeed the Greater Western Sydney. Within this budget is a historic amount of spending on infrastructure that will get our nation moving. For New South Wales alone, there is a record $14.9 billion in funding. Crucial to this for the electorate is the Western Sydney Infrastructure Plan, which will have a significant impact on Greater Western Sydney, the largest Sydney, and of course all the surrounding regions of Sydney. It includes $2.9 billion for road transport upgrades to service Sydney's second airport to be developed at Badgerys Creek, and for the first time in a long time, the infrastructure spend on roads is going to invest before we establish the actual airport. Building the right road infrastructure to support Badgerys Creek will not just benefit airport users but residents throughout Macquarie, many of whom already travel long distances to get to work, not to mention the additional investment that will add to the tourism dollar and people movements that will benefit particularly the community of the Blue Mountains and the Hawkesbury. The upgrade to the Northern Road, Bringelly Road and the $200 million local roads package will deliver will relieve pressure on existing infrastructure and release the economic capacity of the region by easing congestion and helping to create local jobs. By working with the New South Wales Government, we are delivering an unprecedented amount of funding for the future of New South Wales. We made a commitment to the people of Greater Western Sydney that building roads and vital infrastructure would be of utmost priority, and this budget is proof of that. Greater Western Sydney, including the Blue Mountains and the Hawkesbury, can no longer afford to be left behind in infrastructure. We are getting on with the job of investing into the future. I'm also pleased to be working to deliver some key infrastructure for my local area. Within this budget is important funding that has been committed to ensure completion of a number of important projects in the region. A package of priority safety upgrades to the Greater Western Highway between Katoomba and Lithgow will see an injection of $173.5 million of federal funds over the next 4 years. I was able to announce this funding last week with the local state member for the Blue Mountains, Rosa Sage, and look forward to working with the community and the state member to deliver this as a priority. There is a $3 million federal contribution to the M4 managed motorway. This includes planning works for a managed motorway system on the M4 from Marylands to Lapston in the lower Blue Mountains. There is a federal contribution of $18 million for the upgrade of the approach roads to the Richmond Bridge and associated intersections in the Hawkesbury. This $80 million will be rolled out over the next 3 years. The local state member and I are working closely with the New South Wales Government to deliver this, and this has been fought for over a number of years. And finally, federal funds of $4.4 million for 2014-2015 have been committed for the Springwood Town Centre revitalisation, and these funds will enable the completion of what is a very important project for the local community. The new Springwood Civic Centre and Precinct will be a valuable community asset for the future generations in Springwood and indeed across the mountains. Within this budget are also some very exciting and worthwhile measures that will assist young people who are indeed the future of our nation. There are some changes to higher education which will benefit young people, particularly in my community. I'm particularly pleased about the historic Commonwealth support for students studying higher education diplomas, advanced diplomas and associate degree courses, as well as those studying bachelor degrees. This is in addition to the announcement that we will establish a Commonwealth scholarship scheme to assist access for students from disadvantaged backgrounds. These measures recognise that higher education is not a one-size-fits-all. We want to ensure that no young person is left behind and that all young people are given the opportunity to study and to learn. We believe that all young people should be learning or earning. And I was pleased to announce last week that suburbs in Macquarie are part of the first 18 areas to be rolled out under Phase 1 of the new Work for the Dole program. This will provide young people with opportunities. This will provide them with incentives. This will provide them with self-esteem building and confidence building activities and an opportunity to develop skills. From the 1st of July 2014, 18 to 30-year-olds in Macquarie who have been unemployed for 12 months or more and receiving New Start and/or youth allowance will be required to do work for the dole in 2014-2015. The government's reinvigorated Work for the Dole program will give all participants a chance to have a go. The coalition government firmly believes that all Australians capable of working should be working. They should be earning, learning or engaging in programs like Work for the Dole. Work for the Dole is an important part of our plan to help young job seekers gain skills and experience that they need to move from welfare to work, to make a positive contribution to their local community and to also have a sense of their value and worth. It keeps job seekers engaged and active, as well as giving them an opportunity to get involved in local initiatives. Unlike those opposite, we do not want to see our young people fall into the trap of a lifetime of welfare dependency when they have the capacity to work and or study. We believe in the potential of the next generation and what they have to offer, but we also recognise that sometimes our young people need a bit of encouragement and an incentive to achieve their dreams and their goals. I would also like to highlight the key election commitments that this budget delivers for the people of Macquarie. I'm thrilled that this budget contains a total of $15 million for the Greater Western Sydney Conservation Corridor, something that I've been fighting and working towards for about a decade. This includes $7.5 million in direct funding for the acquisition of threatened land in the Cumberland Conservation Corridor. This commitment is something that myself, along with the Minister for the Environment, the Member for Lindsay and others are deeply committed to and also excited about. It will be a major boost for the conservation of the area and will provide a once-in-a-generation opportunity to establish a conservation corridor which will be preserved for future generations. It is a recognition of the importance of protecting the green areas within and around our cities, particularly in the Greater Western Sydney, and the conservation value of the Cumberland Plain woodlands. The 2014-2015 federal budget also included funding under the Coalition Government's Safer Streets program, where proceeds of crime will be directed to fund local crime preventing projects, including $150,000 for closed-circuit television cameras for Richmond, $300,000 for closed-circuit television cameras for Blaxland and Wentworth Falls, $30,000 for closed-circuit television cameras for the Hazelbrook pedestrian overpass, and $30,000 for closed-circuit television cameras for Peter Carroll Field in Lura. This $510,000 investment to improve security in the local community is a welcome announcement for small business owners in particular, who often bear the brunt of vandalism and theft. I've already met with the local council and also spoke to local police and various community organisations that will be involved in the rollout of this initiative, and I look forward to the end result, which will provide a safer community for all. Also relevant to the electorate of Macquarie is the $15 million in the 2014-2015 federal budget for the creation of a national bushfire mitigation program. This commitment we made at the election is fully funded, ensuring no additional pressure on the budget. This program is a targeted initiative to reduce the impact of bushfires and build a more disaster-resilient Australia. Too many times Australians have witnessed bushfires that devastate Australian communities and business, and in fact, for many who would be aware, we have faced this firsthand in the Blue Mountains most recently, but also in the Hawkesbury and a number of regions that are close to our communities. The National Bushfire Mitigation Program will see the Commonwealth partner with states and territories to build upon their existing fire management practices and implement strategies to address risks. This program will better equip communities to be able to prevent and, if needed, withstand the impacts and effects of bushfires. Through this budget, the Abbott government has reduced the labour deficits by $43.8 billion through to 2017-2018. This budget is about a shift from spending to contributing, and from the short term to the long term. We're working to create a sustainable future for the next generations. During my former career as a social worker, I observed all too often the knock-on effects for a family when a person was stuck in a lifestyle of welfare dependency. I also observed that it was often when a Labor government was in power that people would walk through my doors needing assistance and support that should never have walked through those doors. Compassion for those less fortunate and a safety net for the vulnerable is paramount. But what is also paramount is giving people the opportunity to contribute and build. We are a land of great opportunity, but we need to allow people to pursue those opportunities and their own dreams. Repairing the budget is a key part of our economic strategy to build a strong, prosperous economy and a safe and secure Australia. There is nothing more relevant to supporting the vulnerable, pensioners, job creation, education, health and infrastructure than a strong economy. We must ask ourselves, are we preparing to let the budgetary position continue to deteriorate so we are leaving a growing mountain of debt to our children, or are we preparing to rein it in now so that we can have a strong and prosperous future? I commend these bills to the House.
The question is the bill be read.